Welcome to another episode of Shift with Elena Agar. In this conversation, I'm joined by Tamika Mason. She's a dynamic leader in the HR and consulting space. We talk about her journey from finance to HR space to ultimately starting her own company where she does the work of HR consulting and beyond. And we really talk about just kind of the challenges of middle management to the impact of AI and technology in HR. So this conversation really dives deep into how organizations can truly support their teams and adapt for the future. So, as always, please like, subscribe, and come back for more. Tamika, welcome to the Shift Podcast.
Hey, it's so great to be here.
You know what I love about recording with people that I actually met in real life, because I don't get to meet all of my guests in real life, but you and I connected at, I think it was an Appian AWS or some event. And we actually just got to chatting and realized, like, out of all the government contracting people, we were like the couple that were in this HR, L&D kind of leadership space. And we automatically connected, which is why I love our communities, because like you're like, oh, you know, you all of a sudden start exchanging ideas and just sharing and so on. So it's really nice. And I think I ran into you in a couple of other events.
No, that's what makes it better is you meet someone, then you start seeing them around at different places. I'm like, oh, yes.
Yes. So I love it. And I got to know you a little bit in the kind of great work that you're doing within your space of HR and consulting work. But for my audience who's listening, who's like, Elena, we don't know who Tamika is. Give us a little snapshot of your career story and kind of where you are today.
Yeah, my career story. Oh my goodness. My career story started when I was, before I even got into high school, and all I knew was I want to be successful. I remember, we had like a middle class type of, upbringing, and we were getting ready for school, and my dad was wanting to buy, our clothes from Walmart, and I'm like, even though I shop at Walmart now all the time. I did not want my tennis shoes from Walmart. They were not name brand. And I just remember from that moment, I could just picture myself walking into a big office building with a suit. I'm like, I'm going to be professional. But take a fast forward, when I went to college, I was actually a systems engineering major, and did an internship with policy and engineering and kind of 21st century skills, and really loved math, really loved science. Systems engineering is kind of like the business aspect of science. So you kind of speak to the programmers as well as share with things with businesses. And I truly thought that's the direction I was going to go. And then I got a couple of offers, and one with the IT consulting company and one doing as a bank manager. And I took the bank manager role because I like numbers and I like business. And that, the idea of being a part of a leadership team was really kind of exciting to me. And when I took that position, it did help that my husband was living, the job was in a city where he was in, so it allowed me to be closer to him. But I didn't know in that moment when I made that decision, I would be shifting from engineering as a career. But I love business. I loved working at the bank. I loved, working within a team setting in person. I loved what I was learning. It was like a 2-year leadership program. So I kind of rotated to different centers while I then, led my own financial center. But then I got tired of the bureaucracy of the bank, and I wanted to do work that was really passionate, that I was really passionate about. So I was looking at nonprofits, and I came across this fantastic organization called Year Up. Year Up was a nonprofit organization that kind of had a very strong mission, but also had a revenue model that really connected the work they did with youth with providing a service to big corporations that they would pay for. And I did operations there, and I grew into my HR role. And that is when I kind of fell in love with HR and people development. And it was actually through that company where and I can talk more about the company, but it's actually through that company where I spent almost 12 years there in multiple different roles within organization development and HR. And that's when I found my calling to what I do now. After about almost 12 years of doing that, I was ready for my next thing. I thought I would be the head of HR somewhere. I also had never tried consulting. And I was like, let me try this consulting thing on the side. And I did, and I loved it. And I've been doing that ever since. So, that's a little bit of my career journey, lots of little steps in between there, but that's really how I landed in leading the talent consulting company that I lead right now.
That's really cool. I love it that at a young age you're like, wait a minute, I want to live a good life, and it needs to be this and that, and it's actually very funny because it's for me, I remember I was a little bit the opposite. Also grew up pretty middle class, but for me I was like, I just want to be a teacher. And then like as I grew up, I was like, wait a minute, I actually did go into education and higher education. Then I was like, wait a minute, I was like, this is I take it back. I take it back. Universe, bring it back. Like I want something else. So I appreciate that you're like, like you knew what you wanted, and it was like success. And like, yes, I wanted to, I wanted to be that, wear that power suit and go into that building and all of that, and hopefully have my name on the building, right? So I
It's
love
funny
it.
because I know a lot has changed now in colleges, and I'm sure maybe human capital, people development, there's more majors out there in colleges, but I just didn't even know that specific field was an option.
Mm,
Like I just knew I wanted some professional job, but
yeah.
there's just so many more jobs when you actually get closer to the job market that are very specific and they're constantly evolving. There's many that at that time existed that no longer exist now, and there's many jobs that I think in 20, 15 years will be really different for our kids that are coming up. But yeah, it's
Mm,
interesting to know you want to be successful, but not know the unique types of roles that
yeah.
people actually have when they become adults.
Yeah, and then you like start off on one thing and you shift around and you kind of just, and that's what I love about like hearing that stories, because that's like one of my big takeaways from my audience. I was like it doesn't matter what you did in the past, you can always shift, you can change, and it's just about being aware of like, hey, this is what I'm really interested in, and so on. And that's what you did. You like jumped around from different areas and then ended up where you are today, and obviously enjoying it and been doing it for years and very successful at it. So it's yeah, it's everybody has a journey, and it's beautiful to hear that. I like those
Yeah.
stories. I think a lot of also like HR and talent professionals at some point, especially I've seen this in recent years, that are like, listen, I think I want to do my own thing. I think I want to jump ship, right? But then it's like, and a lot of us start on the side, and it's like, okay, I have my full-time job, and then let me dabble on something else, and especially like consultancy work, because I feel like we're kind of jacks of all trades, and we're so good at many things, and I think that's just part of who we are as professionals. But then,
Yeah.
like, it's like, at what point in your experience where you're like, okay, this is not no longer a part-time gig. I actually want to go full on with it. What was that decision making? Do you remember when it happened?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. For me, I made a leap of faith, to be honest. I was in a role where I knew my time was running out with that particular role. And I always kind of coach others to think about what are 2 to 3 other roles you could see yourself in next. And one of the roles was a chief, you know, CHRO in another organization. So I was actually in the final round for a couple of those, and potentially to do consulting. I was in conversations with another company that does like HR talent consulting. And I remember just feeling like with the life cycle of the role that I was in, there was a certain time frame that was optimal to make a transition for a new leader to come in. And I didn't want to, pass that moment. So I actually made a decision on faith that I'm going to just leave a job without a job, trusting that one of these things were going to come through. And the thing that came through was the consulting work. It was a consult. Now, granted, the current job that I was in was one of my first clients, and I do think that that's a good strategy for anyone who's trying to do their own thing. But yeah, I took a leap of faith. I built clientele. I reached out to my network. I said, this is what I'm doing. And I was doing that while I was completing the final rounds of these other searches. And this is what continued to flow, where new clients and new business came. And I remember in those early stages just thinking, I need a clear vision. I need a mission for this organization. I need the branding. So I did invest in just that high level infrastructure. But it wasn't until about 6 or 7 months after where I realized, oh, you can be a solopreneur or you can really build a business where you have a team. And at that point, I made a decision that I really wanted to build a business where I had a team. And I actually do think sometimes it can take a while for someone to realize that. And or, I know plenty of, really strong colleagues who don't make that choice.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I've definitely dabbled both. I've been full time on my own, and then I've always done like full time and something else. Like ever since college, like I was never. I think I just have too much energy. I have too many thoughts. Like it keeps me out of trouble. That's how I feel about it. But yeah, and I agree. And sometimes you have to make a choice to kind of to take the step or to not take the step. And I think ultimately, where I kind of am is, I mean, obviously I'm still kind of very much like I want to do things on my own, but part of it is and I think a lot of people can relate to it. Is like part of it is just like I move fast and I want to go faster, and I feel like and I just want to build. And sometimes depending on the size of the company you're working with, it's hard to build. And you're following other people's agendas, and it's fine and it works. But then sometimes you're like, okay, maybe I want to just build and follow my own agenda and build the things I believe in. So it's more about that. But yeah, no, it's interesting. I've been having a lot of conversation with colleagues in our field who are either just stepped out of their full-time roles and into their own, or kind of doubling between the two. So it's a interesting time to observe, especially with all the AI stuff and everybody's worrying about that. So
I mean, and now is a great time to build. It's a strategy in a lot of different ways. It's obviously additional income. It's create using that creative energy that we have to kind of innovate in ways that we wouldn't all otherwise do. But I also just think technology allows capacity for people to really put themselves out there in the market in a way that just wasn't possible, 10, 15, 20 years ago.
yeah,
So, yeah, I think the moment
yeah.
is now for people to be able to have more opportunities to grow and innovate and have their own side hustles, as I would say, while they're also working full time. And it's a
Yeah.
safer way to do it when you
Yeah.
already have something full time, being able to kind of grow your vision on the side.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So talk to me a little bit about kind of the consultancy work that you do. What is, I guess, give me like the two top things that companies and clients come to you for in talent, because it's such a vast world and there's, so many problems that we solve. What are your top two, you would say,
Oh my
that are good?
gosh, what are the top two? I like to say organizations we work with are organizations that are values aligned. And what I specifically mean by that is they really believe people are their greatest asset. Whether they're a service based business or a product based business, they really value what their people bring to the impact and that they're ultimately trying to have, the mission that they're ultimately trying to serve as a company. I think when our value as a company, I mean, we offer services, right? We offer training and custom facilitation. We offer consulting. We offer executive coaching, both team and individual. But I think the highest level of support we provide is we partner with leaders who have a clear vision of where they want to go. They have clear business goals or department goals, and they're just struggling on the people side. And what we do is we work with them to help them connect the strategy of what they're trying to achieve to the achievement of results through developing the people strategy. Really helping them see, and for entrepreneurs, that might be just here's basic HR compliance, basic things you need to know when you have your first few employees, and just some thought partnership, as they're trying to attract the right team and build a team and really build a team led type of business versus it being solely dependent on them. But for larger organizations, it might be more organizational change, structure that we're kind of supporting. So it's a wide range, but I think it can be generally simplified to we help you with what are the strategic things you can do with your people that
Mm.
moves towards results.
Yeah, I think it's one of the biggest kind of, I don't know what to call it, like unknown areas of HR to a lot of people, is that how much goes in the back end to actually make your company compliant and legal and all these important things that matter. And then there's the people piece, because if you don't take care of your people, especially now, listen, companies might have been able to get away with it 10, 15 years, like when our parents were working, it's like, there's just no consideration for anything. It's just what it is.
Yeah.
It's not happening anymore. And with new generations that are just like, I'm going to be a YouTuber, you need to really convince me to want to come work for you. If you're not investing in your people, you have a talent problem coming to you very soon.
100%, 100%. Like folks have options. Folks can find options through the internet. LinkedIn has changed the game when it comes to sharing your resume and what your profile is. So, the workforce really wants they're interviewing us, as employers
Hmm.
and companies just as much as we're interviewing them. So yeah, it's 100% true. And I found even when the economy is not great, that's where you have employees that might stick around because they don't want to make any major shifts while there's not a lot of job openings. But as soon as the economy picks up, they're gone if they don't feel really engaged by their team and their managers. I always like to say people join organizations, but they leave their managers. And I
Yeah.
have found that to be so true, no matter how small or large the team is.
Yeah. Now I think we're going through what they call job hugging. Is that what, like a job where people are like hug, like that's the new term. I'm trying to keep up with all the terms. So before it was like job, I forget what it was, but now it's job hugging because the economy and people don't want to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And sometimes they're even stuck in like toxic environments and bad managers, to your point, and they're just stuck because they're just hugging their job because there's nothing else. I mean, I'm not laughing. It's just a fun. It's not funny, but it's just like, it's just the reality. Like we go from job hopping to job. I forget the other term that was there. Now we're hugging our job, and we keep coming up with all these terms. But about the manager piece, what I'm still a little bit, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What I'm still a little bit I don't know what's the word, not confused, but I'm surprised continuously about. We know managers are so important, yet
Yeah.
we do, especially the middle managers. So those that are kind of in the middle, maybe they're managing teams, projects, they're a lead on some kind of initiative, and yet they get a lot of times the least amount of attention. At least that's
Yes.
what I've observed. Like, what are your thoughts like, and what are some like? Why should we maybe, if somebody's listening to this, like, what are some tips for maybe people in these roles? To, like, how can we help if they're a manager and they need that support? How can we help them if they're in HR? Why they should double down on the managers? Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that naturally, organizations, when they get to that size where they have people managers that might be managing 1 to 2 people or 3 people, they're not necessarily department leaders. I find that, business owners and team leaders have such enormous responsibility with growing and sustaining the business and thinking about products and services and even trying to build alignment with their leadership teams, that if they haven't built the infrastructure of support, the expectations for people managers, there can be a gap. There can be a total gap in terms of just the clarity that people managers have. Some of the things that we find that are symptoms of it is just, you know, the people in those roles often don't necessarily, it might be their first management experience. The organization might have grown so fast they haven't really documented as much of their guidelines around management, and or maybe it's documented in some manual somewhere that nobody reads. It's not given to people in small bite-sized ways that are accessible, like quick one-pagers, on how to do something. It's not accessible on some SharePoint site within the organization or the team. There's not a forum for peer managers to get together and talk about challenges and things like that. Those are all, by the way, strategies that individual managers can ask for, in terms of support, but also HR leaders or team leaders can try to set up for, entry level managers that are managing individuals or small teams within an organization. It's easy to do when you think about what it actually takes to grow a company and grow a business.
Yeah. No, I think that's pretty practical. Yeah, I think going back to that systems and processy thing, I think just taking a step back and saying like, what do we have in place? Is it working? Right? Because I think what we often do is just put band-aids on broken legs instead of actually going to the root of like, let's look at our infrastructure of
Yeah.
how this is operated. So, yeah.
And that also just makes me think in terms of just infrastructure, is just what are the systems that we have in place to get the natural ebbs and flows of feedback and feedback loops from our team? Sometimes there's just a gap in understanding what the employee experience is because we don't do an annual survey, or we don't do exit interviews, or we don't do skip level meetings, with people on our team, fireside chats, or we've been virtual so long since post COVID that we actually haven't ever met half of our team in person, and we haven't figured out what the virtual way is of connecting with people that are not our direct reports. Like, those are all real challenges, real situations and dynamics that organizations are facing. And when you don't know, you can't act on, the information, and if you don't know about the experience that employees are having.
Yeah, that brings me to my next thought actually, because I was just posting something about it, and it was, we do a lot of surveys. We do a lot that are usually ineffective, right? And then we do different like assessments and, pulse on the employee health from like a performance perspective, but we don't really do anything with it. So it's like collecting metrics for the sake of collecting metrics,
Yes.
right? And again, we keep doing it. Why
Yes, we
is there,
do.
yeah, like is it I haven't been in traditional HR, so I don't actually know. I've been in like talent development space, but I've never been in traditional HR. So I don't even know like where this comes from. Where did that come from, and what can we do differently?
Oh my goodness. Well, where did that come from? Well, let me take a step back and just say, for anyone listening, I feel like there's three pitfalls to organizational surveys and assessments, and they're common. They're the most common, but they're also the simplest to fix. So the first pitfall is just not doing any surveys. Like, we just aren't organized enough to ask for the information, to ask for the data.
Yeah.
And when you don't have the data, you can't do anything about it, and there's not a rhythm to get the information. So that's the first. The second is what you're talking about, is it can just be survey overload, and leadership isn't really thinking about who is going to look at this data, and what are we going to do about the data that we get. And if we've decided to do something, let's communicate it and let people know
So
this is what
true.
we're doing. And it's a direct result of this survey that we did. And oftentimes organizations get stuck with just doing the survey, getting the data, but they're not really deciding this is what we're going to do as a result. But some of them are, but they're not taking it a step further and communicating it properly. So the experience of staff are like, well, why am I going to take this survey if you haven't done anything? I haven't heard anything since last year when you did this survey a year ago. And then the third pitfall I would say is just people, we as organizations can get way more sophisticated around survey strategy, like just how many we do, how many we don't do, how many questions we ask, really asking the questions that are going to get us the data that we would want to act on, updating our survey annually based upon the data we're getting, just to see, like, you don't want to change your survey every year, but you can, because you want to see year over year comparisons, but you can tweak certain questions if it's not really giving you the data that you need to make strategic decisions. And that's really the difference between strategic HR, in my mind, and traditional HR that's just kind of going through the motions.
Mm. Yeah. No, I think I love I think one of the biggest ones I've seen is like the communication piece.
Yes.
Because it's like some companies do really good and the intention is so good, but then nobody took ownership of it. And it's like, what happened to that thing that you guys were so excited? And I guess that's the hard part about like the consultant piece, because you want to see the company succeed, and that's why it's like it's because but at the same time they need to take ownership of that thing, right, that they might have
Yes.
hired you to do and so on. And I think that's an important one to point out, like, because then, yeah, like as consultants we can offer a lot of value, but then like make sure that it actually goes somewhere. Right.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like to try to include that in our engagement, is the report out to staff.
Mm,
Even we often aren't the ones doing it, the client's doing it, but we
yeah.
put it in the scope so that we can be
Yeah.
present in the meeting and, know that people really are sharing the data and talking about a few initial things they plan to do, and also using that as a forum to get staff feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I'm curious in again clients that come to you, are they talking about AI? Are they thinking about it from like a people's perspective? Is there like what's the talk, I guess,
Mm,
among your clients?
oh my gosh. Our clients talking about AI. You know, everybody's talking about AI in a sense,
Yeah.
on social media, and AI this, AI that. I think it's going to take a while I do think people are piloting using it, whether their employer knows it or not, both for their personal lives and for work. But I think that a lot of companies are in the early stages of really strategically using AI for their business and for the
Mm,
different parts of their business, and really thinking about it in a greater way. We have had more clients realize, oh wow, we don't have any guidelines or policies around AI.
mm,
And so I do think that some of the work that we've been doing with, where we're kind of like the strategic business partner for the clients that we're working with, is really helping them think through some foundational AI guidelines, but then also helping them think about, how do you set guidelines in a way that gets people some type of skeleton to work within, but also encourages them to pilot, in the areas where you feel like you can learn and bring in efficiencies, within your work. And so, yeah, in my experience with our clients, folks are talking about it a lot. They might use it for note taking. They haven't really thought through what meetings are we not going to use
mm.
AI for note taking. So there's just not a lot of strategy and
Yeah.
intentionality around it. It's more so ad hoc, let's pilot it. And I think, as time goes on, as we have more intentional conversations, people will be able to be more strategic with how they're thinking about using it.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's
I
your experience with?
yeah, I was gonna say I've also so it depends on who I talk to, I guess. But I do see some companies. Well, in government contracting space, it's a topic, but it's very sensitive because our clients are like federal agencies and so on. So that becomes even more complicated when it comes to like applying AI in the work that we do. So that's one thing. On the smaller kind of businesses, startup-y environments, they're full on using it. They're like they. I was talking to somebody the other day. I'm not kidding you. He I'm not gonna he works for a big company, I'm not gonna name, but he also has a small business. And I said, listen, how are you doing all of this? And he said, I have 39 AI agents that I have trained to do X, Y, and Z. And he said, and I just deploy them every night. And by the time I wake up, it's done. And he does a lot of technology. So with tech, especially, you can do. And I was like, oh my, I mean, and he's like a tech guy, he's a just super smart guy. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like, but anyway, so that's an example of, I think small startup-y, those kind of
Yeah,
environments, they're like, let's just do it. Because there's not a lot of guardrails for them. Like, as long as they're mindful of X, Y, and Z, they don't have to follow,
yeah,
corporate things. So I think on the corporate, like large organizations, as you said, I think it's just complicated. But
yeah.
my fear is that I actually was interviewing somebody on my podcast the other day, and every time I interview people who come from like really large, like Goldman Sachs, EY type of experiences, and they tell me, and now they're doing HR tech or whatever, and they tell me kind of insights and stuff that I don't know about, and then when they tell me that they're worried how slow the adoption is, it makes me nervous.
Yeah,
So I think that I think what corporates can learn from startups is the fast paced of like like let's make time for this, let's figure out what it is, like just like quick move through, like get people together. I think we're really comfortable in corporates, and I'm genuinely I'm concerned that corporates, a lot of them are not going to really be able to keep up in the next 3 to 5 years, but somebody told me it could be 3 to 6 months, so I'm more optimistic. I say like a couple of years, but watch me look back at this and be like, Tamika, remember, look at this now.
yeah. I mean, that's one of the benefits of being entrepreneurial or startup or small businesses, is the risk of using AI is a lot lower, and the implementation, but then the reward in terms of the efficiencies is so much higher. And when you don't have a huge overhead, but you have a lot of work or a lot of things that you can be doing. People who make the time can be really creative. And so, yeah, I do think that that's going to allow some to really scale in a different way while large corporate is still trying to figure out what's what.
Yeah. Yeah, and and the employees are going to be impacted. That's the scary part, and then it impacts everything else. So yes, if you're a leader listening out there, maybe just like talk to your other leaders about what are you guys doing with AI, and how can you speed it up, and how can you future proof, because I think the days are gone where we can take a year or 2 years to work out like a strategy. I think it's like weeks now, if not days, if not
Yeah.
hours. Like it just has to be like there has to be a dedicated team who focuses just on that.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
And I think that's the key is, the days are gone where you get this whole team together and you go behind a closed door and you come up with the strategy and you do all these interviews. And then a year later, this is our strategy. There's a lot more of understanding what the task is that you need to do, where the opportunities for efficiencies or innovation, piloting, learning, testing in the day-to-day flow of work and letting that kind of guide. So I think innovation is a more iterative, more hands-on with the day-to-day work versus theoretical behind the scenes and then like trying to implement. Like technology is moving too fast for that.
Yeah. And as you're kind of you the leader of your company, and as you're kind of looking at the next year, what are you most excited about? What do you lose sleep over, so to say? Is there anything that you're like that's on top of your mind that you're trying to solve, or thinking about?
What am I was like? Okay. Well, I think the biggest thing where I'm like, I can't say I'm losing sleep over it, but it's the thing. And that's just the market right now is just so unpredictable, and I think that that is something no matter who I talk to or what I'm listening to, as a leader, I'm just thinking about what are we doing as a team to just be prepared for the wide range, of what's happening within the market. But the things that get me excited are the things that me and my team can drive on our own, regardless of the market. It gets me excited that we're a small business. So, it's not, it doesn't take that much for us to make impact or reach our goals. So that feels exciting. It feels very attainable and tangible. We build deep relationships with our partners and clients, and that grows. Like, we are growing because clients we're working with are going somewhere else. And so while we're still working with this client, we're now introduced to this other client because so and so went there. Um, it gets me excited to leverage technology. There's so much more technology out there when you think about AI, when you think about startup companies such as yourself who are doing innovative things in the HR space, and just to get a chance to kind of explore those and think about how that can offer value. That's really exciting. And I just honestly enjoy working with the people I get to work with every day. I enjoy solving problems with them. At the end of the day, it's like, it can be a challenging, whatever the challenging task is at hand. If you enjoy the people that you're solving it with, it does make it better. And so I think those are the things that kind of keep me energized. And then I think the last thing is just, I know that the collaborations that we have are making impact.
Mhm.
And people are learning, people are growing, people are finding value, people are getting closer to their goals. And that's always energizing. Or if they didn't reach their goal, there's like this great insider learning that they've had around why. Like, what could they have
Mhm.
done differently? What was the circumstances that kind of, led to that? And, those are all things that go with us and grow with us in our careers and in our businesses and in life.
Mm.
What about you? What keeps you
Yeah.
excited?
Well, of course, building shift well is, it's, I'm so, I always like, when you just wake up and you're so excited, and it's very cliche, but I'm really that annoying person who just loves what she does. Like like I really am. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, let me just keep that to myself, but I really am. I'm that annoying person. I love what I do. I'm excited. I could work hours, Tamika, and I do. And I take my days off. I'm not like, hustle mode kind of mentality, but I work until I feel like, okay, I'm done for the day and mentally I'm not productive anymore. So I'm really excited about what we're building. And it's the process of it. Like, and I'm very like, I'm very realistic in terms of like how fast things move, the competition, we're small, we don't have the funds, we don't, you know what I mean? Like we're very scrappy right now and so on. But it's just this experience, to your point, like I'm doing something I enjoy with a team that I really enjoy, and that's what I'm really, really excited about. I was on a panel the other day, and the question, it was about AI and training, and the moderator asked the question. They said, like, how do you showcase AI value, like AI value to your customers? And my answer, I was like, we focus less on the AI value. I think what's going to, I mean, yes, it's obvious. The AI value is obvious. So that's why I feel like it's very obvious, like with AI products, like, because you can have ROI, you can have metrics, blah blah blah. I think what I double down on is, to your point, is the collaborations, the relationships, because as a small business, you can actually truly have authentic relationships with your clients, offer customer support, customer service that is just the best. And
Yeah.
for me personally, like I'll take a great customer service from a small business versus a hot mess of a chatbot, right? I don't care how great that chatbot is if I can't reach a human person to solve my problem. And I think
Yeah.
that's what I think about. I'm like, technology is going to be technology, it's going to sort itself out. It's clear ROI. Like there's a lot of clear stuff. It tells you where it's good, essentially. And I think what's going to differentiate, and that's why I love the small business side of things, is because it's manageable. Like you said, it's easier to control what we can control. And we're not, we don't have boards of directors to report to, or stakeholder, you know what I'm saying? Like those huge things. And I think, and, go making full circle to, success. That to me is success, you
Yeah.
know, is just doing what I enjoy, making money, making an impact with people I enjoy. Like that's simple as that.
Yeah. And, to your original question at the beginning of the call, how many young adults are introduced to entrepreneurship, so early in life? And how are we equipping the new generation with the skills and the tools to really be effective in their entrepreneurial journey? Because it really is a great path,
It
to go
is.
down. So I get excited about that. And some of like my side, volunteer work and connection is actually with that 18 to 24-year-old or high school age, because at that age, you are impacted by whatever choices your parents have made, but you're growing into an age where you get to make decisions that are yours to own and
Mm-hmm.
can really shift the trajectory of your own life. And so I love that age.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Well, Tamika, where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you, work with you, talk to you?
I am not hard to find. I am based here in the DMV, but on social, I'm on LinkedIn, Tamika L. Mason, and you can find me at Building for Mission, and I'm sure you'll have that linked somewhere. But yeah, you can clients can find me there, people can find me there, and network and connect. I'm pretty responsive in all the ways.
Absolutely. And you are great at network, because I see you at every networking event I go to, at least at every place. So I love it. I hope to see you again in person. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's fun.